let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed effort to convert retreat into advance.
Since it is President's Day, and this day isn't just for Lincoln or Washington anymore, it's time to hear from other chief executives, both past and present. We just heard FDR from his first inaugural address, even though the photo was from the Oval Office. And of course, he had a famous comment on fear. But President Roosevelt was quick to use terror as a synonym for fear. And today, Islamic terror is advancing on the free world. ISIS engages in a mass execution of Coptic Christians. In Copenhagen, there are killings that resemble what occurred earlier this year in Paris. And here, well, our government has the day off for President's Day. Oh yes, President's Day, a day to remember presidential firsts. And you're about to see the TV world transform from black and white to color. As President Eisenhower visited NBC Washington in May of 1958, and Robert Sarnoff had his finger on the button, not the nuclear button, but the one that takes us from the antiquities of monochrome to living color.
By pressing this button, which I now do, the cameras are transmitting a live color picture.
So Ike is about to become the first president to appear on color television. And though his language is not exactly conversational and his appearance on camera is a bit ill at ease, listen as President Eisenhower describes the changes that television heralded for our government more than a half-century ago.
Decisions of a nation and of a government that at one time could tolerate 3 or 4 weeks of study now demand almost instantaneous reaction. So it is again apparent that unless our citizenry can be informed of the things that happen in the world and are reflected through the eyes of legislative and executive leaders in such a way that they may understand exactly what these things mean, then the United States cannot react as it should.
And to think critics used to bash Ike for playing more golf than he should, but as a leader, as the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe during World War II and later as Commander-in-Chief, he understood the importance and the urgency of decisions dealing with our national security. Which brings us now to our current president, who plays more golf than Ike ever dreamed of, and who, despite his conversational manner on camera, sadly looks too small for the office he holds. Last week, in an interview with Vox, he blamed media coverage for international events rather than his own stewardship as president.
You know, what's the famous saying about local newscasts, right? If it bleeds, it leads, right? You show crime stories and you show fires, because that's what folks watch. It's all about ratings. And the problems of terrorism and dysfunction and chaos, along with plane crashes and a few other things, that's the equivalent when it comes to covering international affairs. There's just not going to be a lot of interest in a headline story that we have cut infant mortality, by really significant amounts over the last 20 years, or that extreme poverty has been slashed, or that there's been enormous progress with a program we set up when I first came into office to help poor farmers increase productivity and yields. It's not a sexy story.
Mr. President, the story we're dealing with may not be sexy, but it is a matter of national security. In the final analysis, matters of life and death even trump sexy stories. So, Mr. President, enjoy your President's Day, and maybe, just maybe, when you get back to work, you can really start to deal with the threats we face, because terrorists aren't taking today off. That's the way I see it.